Greetings family, I hope you're well. For this morning's session, looking back at the events of last week, I want to start off by entitling it Owning the Rules of the Game. Now, where do I start? What happened last week? No, in fact, let's not go last week, let's start with today. What happened this morning? Tony Blair, the war criminal, his prosecution was blocked by High Court judges. And that's a very important thing to know and to learn from. The very same kind of characters as this Morbic, who's running the public inquiry, is the very same people who blocked Tony Blair's prosecution or potential prosecution. And it should let us realise, it should help us to understand that bodies like the IPCC, state-sanctioned inquiries, all of these kind of bodies that are set up where we don't own the rules of play, we can never win. They're rigged from the very beginning. So where do I want to start after saying that? Okay, the announcement from the Metropolitan Police. Now, probably like many of us, when we heard that the police were considering making prosecutions and arrests, we thought, yeah, at last, a sight of justice. But it's not. The police were very careful with their words. They talked about prosecuting Kensington Council and the TMO for corporate manslaughter. Now what that means is that even if they found them guilty, the maximum penalty that any of those officers, in fact none of the officers would actually be exposed to because it's a collective action, so the maximum that they'd be subject to is a fine. And you've got to understand how the way the fine system works. If Kensington is fined with its massive of millions in reserve, the money from local authority would go to central government. So the money's just going to be shuffled around. No actual real change will happen. In fact, that's not actually completely true because something will happen. Because the money will come out of the council coffers, as they call them, what will happen is that the poorer residents in Kensington will feel the pain because it's their services that will be cut, not the rich ones. It will be their services that are cut to feed the fine for the crime against them. So you've got to understand that this whole idea about corporate manslaughter being some form of justice is complete nonsense, and it's something that has to be rejected. The only other possible option is if the individual officers are actually charged with what's called gross negligence. Now, if they're charged with gross negligence, then there is a slim sliver of a chance that they could go to jail. But again, this is all politicking, this is all kind of games. Okay, so the next party trick that's emerged in the media is again this push to cover up Grenfell Towers. And there are many justifications of why. I think the most haunting or the most dramatic was the one way of saying that it's a terrifying look. There's the sounds of ghosts looking down on the whole of Kensington. The other excuses are that there's ashes that are being spread into the air, and only by covering the tower can residents be made safe. These are all excuses, but to actually cover the tower and then obviously demolish it before justice has actually been achieved, it's the equivalent of actually incinerating a murdered body before an autopsy taking place, before you can get the evidence to find out exactly how bad the crime was. In Hackney, where I live, the shrine that the young people built for Rashan Charles has actually been taken down. Posters, flyers, flowers, just all the tributes, all the reminder of his life and how unjustly it was taken have been removed. So imagine walking around Kensington now, because if you think this won't happen, and I don't want to say I told you so, first the tower goes, and then all those signs, all those pictures of loved ones, all those appeals start to one by one slowly disappear. And if there are people crying out for justice, spirits that are haunting people, then the right response isn't to silence their cries, but to realise their ambitions. If we really want to understand the games the media have been up to this week, then they buried what's probably the most important and tragic story of Grenfell since the actual massacre happened in the first place. And I'm talking about the 20 to 30 people who try to commit suicide. And of that, we have reports of at least 4 of them unfortunately successful. Now, Jeremy Hunt might have this morning announced 1.3 billion in mental health services, but it's too late. Those people are gone. And this reminds me of the New Cross massacre. We used to say 13 dead, nothing said, but what people don't always understand is that not all of them actually perished in the fire on that night. One of them actually took his own life, suicide. And what this means is that even after the tragedy, there are still victims. In 9/11, there was a police officer who took his own life, suffering from 9/11 trauma. In all kinds of massacres like this, the strain on mental well-being is phenomenal. And the failure to provide essential services, this whole idea you can just chuck money at the problem and it will go away. You can issue fines, you can make people resign, and this will solve the problem, is actually a complete and utter lie. So, what can I say? In fact, let me try to explain this in a better way. We need to change the rules of the game. The game that we are playing is completely fixed. And if we continue along this line, there's not going to be any justice. They'll just keep throwing money at it, keep giving, like little scapegoats, and there'll be no change. There's a bench over there. Let me try and show you what I mean. Now, chess is a wonderful game. Second to Wari. It's one of the first ones I recommend if you want to learn about strategy and tactics. Give thanks to Brother Gallant for teaching our young people how to play it. But in this situation, I think this is the best example, or the best way for me to give you an example of what's actually happening. So this is the game right now. This is the state over here, and this is us over here. And the state made its move. It moved forward, and what's done, it took us in various different ways. We moved, made mistakes, they took us, and so forth. But right now they know they've made a mistake. Right now they know that the anger is not something they can get away with easily. So they're playing a really smart game. What they're doing is moving their pawns forward. They're sacrificing them. And then we're taking them, and then we're thinking, yeah, we've got another pawn, we've got another pawn. We're thinking that we're actually making some kind of progress, but we're not. Because all the time that they're moving their pawns forward to sacrifices, I'm talking about council members and TMO leaders and all this kind of stuff. All the time that they're moving their pawns forward, and we think that we're making progress. What they're secretly doing is covering the back row, the leaders, the ones that matter. We're completely exposed, but they're off the table. And this is what they want to do with Grenfell Towers, by actually taking it off the radar so we don't see it, out of sight, out of mind again. We're going to lose that game. So the only way to actually win it is to switch up the rules. We've got to understand that they're playing chess and we're playing drafts, and that can't run. So what happened in drafts when people found that the pace was too slow, that it wasn't working? Well, children invented a move called Flying Kings. I don't know if you heard about that. And in Flying Kings, a king can go wee over across the board and just take a piece, breaking all the rules. Sometimes we have to use techniques, sometimes we have to use strategies that aren't invented, and we have to create them. We have to become the co-creators in this game. Because if we don't, it'll be checkmate. And what I'm telling you, what we can't afford are any more of our people suicides. Nah. Justice. Justice means people go to jail. justice means that we get all the resources needed to take care of the mental health of those people who are still suffering and prevent any more losses of life. Because those extra 4, as far as I'm concerned, could be added to the official tally of 80. I'm going to sign off there. I guess I'm a bit tired, I'm feeling a bit emotional. So may the ancestors continue to guide and protect us. Ashe.